Hi, and welcome to The Seamless Blend, digital textile dialogues with Gabby and Jorgen. Our primary purpose is to educate and initiate discussions. The opinions expressed are solely our own and do not constitute professional advice or services. We invite contributions from our audience and maintain an open community on Discord. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to another week, another episode. In this particular episode, we've kind of set the title to be "Is AI the missing puzzle piece?" And I think that's a question that I think we're wondering. We're talking a lot about. We hear a lot of other people are wondering the same: Is AI going to solve all of our problems? And so that's what we're going to be talking a little bit more about today. We have this new format for this season, but it's me and Gabby here. I'm Jorgen. I come from textiles manufacturing mainly background and have been focusing on DPC since 2016. My main area of focus is fabric digitization and really working on fabric digitization, how that fits into DPC and the larger picture of fashion and the textiles industries. And with me, I have Gabby.
Hello, yes. My name is Gabby Shiner-Hill. I'm co-founder of the digital materials agency Bureau 555. I'm also an industrial fellow of Bath Spa, working on the digitisation of fashion assets with Fashion Museum in Bath. And I'm also a big textile fan. So that's why I'm here.
So we're both here. Yeah. What has happened in the last, or I think last week, Gabby, you were talking about going to Digital Design Weekend at the V&A.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what happened there?
Well, I said I was going to give some insight into that. So the V&A, the Victoria and Albert Museum, is based in London, just for anyone who's listening who's not from the UK. And it has a 3-day digital design weekend, which takes part during London Design Festival. So there was about 25 exhibitors, workshops, interactive installations, demonstrations, working at the intersection of sort of art, design and technology. I've actually taken part in it about 3 years ago. This year there was quite a big focus on AI and how creatives can use AI and generative data sets as well, which is very exciting. The one project that I really wanted to hone in on was the speculative sewing AI project, which is by a company called Politics of Patents, which is a project out of Goldsmiths. Probably shouldn't have called them a company, they're not officially a company. I spoke to the lead researcher, Kat, about their work, and what they did is they took from the European Patent Office, they took 320,000 specs of wearable inventions. So they had like fireproof skirts, so women in large skirts could get themselves out of buildings. They had special underwater suits which looked like suitcases almost, that one of them was designed so you could eat a sandwich inside the suit in case you got hungry while you were underwater. I mean, completely really interesting sets of wearable technologies. Basically, these patents have been registered over the last 200 years, and they're completely open as part of the European Patent Office. So what they've done is they've built a data set using these patents and using the images from these patents, and we could put in prompts for a piece of clothing that we wanted to look and see what it could look like that could solve a problem for us. So for example, I went with my 11-year-old daughter, and she wanted to have a pair of wide leg trousers that could skinny up so she could run quickly, which was an interesting problem that she felt like she had in the world. But basically you could give it the prompt, and then what it would do is from the image base of all those patents, it would then deliver you something. The real crux of it was about exploring how AI is going to help reimagine historical patents, using archive materials to build these data sets, and questioning how useful, ethical and challenging these digital tools can be for design practice. So I had a really interesting discussion with Kat, the lead researcher, which I hope to carry on. And yeah, it's Politics of Patents. I'll put the link in afterwards. I would have a look at that project, and you can find them on Instagram as well. So most interesting to me is it was using a data set to create AI generated images of garments. So I immediately, obviously, was very interested in that. But I think this week we'd quite like to talk about the role of AI in fabric digitization, which is presents many challenges, I feel, within our space.
Mm.
What do you feel about that, Jorgen?
Yeah. No, I think it's a very current, relevant question at the moment right now, and I feel like I'm coming across a lot of people maybe misunderstanding or misinterpreting a little bit more how AI can influence or impact DPC and fabric digitization. Maybe in general, some people are thinking that the AI will just by itself almost just change everything, and we're going to completely, everyone's going to lose their jobs, or there's different scenarios and all of this. But I think when we drill down to something so specific as fabric digitization, we can talk a little bit more about what some of the pros and cons are with AI. And I think it's still very much in the early days of what we will be seeing in the future. AI has almost just recently, even though it's been in development, has had many different names up until this point, and it's only recently in the last few years that we've been calling it AI in the way that we now currently see the technology. But I think it's particularly interesting with mainly what we want to talk about today was just kind of clarifying a little bit more, like how is AI currently used for fabric digitization, and also maybe a little bit more, into the bigger picture of DPC, and what are some of the good and maybe bad things to use AI for. I think maybe just to start, we see that AI is not so much of where we are right now with almost like with ChatGPT and a lot of the general purpose AIs. We're not just going to be able to go into ChatGPT and then ask it for a digital material and have it output a perfect set of PBR texture map with their physics and all these things. Even, we might want to do that, but yeah, we're not there yet. But AI is being used in fabric digitization for different things, and as we talked a lot about in season one, maybe we could go one by one, even Gabby, looking at, for example, visualization, physics, other data, maybe even almost like the metadata and so forth. But maybe even starting with, what do you think about almost like with visualization for
Yeah,
fabric?
well, I know what I've used it for. So I've used it for visualization, but the problem that I had, and I've used it specifically with VMod's AI fabric generator when it was in
Yeah.
beta format. Not 100%
Mm.
sure if it's still out actually, because I know that they had changed their offering within VMod.
Mm.
It was a really interesting tool to use, but I wasn't happy enough with the maps behind it. So visually,
Mm.
on a straight level, if I asked it for a blue embroidered material, for example, I would get a blue embroidered material, but the map images at the background weren't good enough for what I was looking for.
Mm.
VMod weren't promising to give me those maps completely perfect because it was all in training. So I do completely understand that. So I'm not sort of trying to say that it didn't work. It was more a case that it didn't work for what I wanted it for.
Yeah.
And the challenge I see is visually, when we describe a fabric, you and I will use completely different descriptive languages to describe the same material.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And unless we are, even if we're a textile expert, a fabric technologist, or someone who has studied textiles for a very long time, we still might use language and terminology that is not exactly the same as the person next to you. So, for example, if we were talking earlier, if we were to describe a denim, for example, if you just say denim no
Mm.
longer means an indigo 3x1
Yeah.
twill with an indigo face and an ecru back, even though if you talk to a denim purist, that is what a denim material is. If
Yeah.
you put in a data set of denim materials, you could get any color. You might get blue at this point, but there's too many variations within our descriptive language. Now,
Mm.
to go back to VMods, they had a way that you could put an image in with your prompts. So you could put your image in, then you could add your prompts, and then so that's obviously you've got a starting point saying, this is my material that I want to work on, and now I would like to give you these prompts to refine it.
Mm.
And that was really interesting to me. I didn't go deep enough into it. I probably did maybe 10 iterations, and I maybe did about three or four materials. I can't claim to be an expert in this point, but I do think that language and the way we describe textiles is really, really important and quite
Mm.
challenging if you're going to try and text prompt a material. I
Yeah.
think it will have to be a combination of image prompting and text prompting. Personally,
Mm. Mm.
that's
Mm.
my thinking.
I think that's an interesting point, almost like to even think about someone, because as you're saying, what we're used to with AI is very much this almost like text prompting, like with ChatGPT, that you can give it lots of context, you can give it a task and different things, and then we're using language to prompt the AI. And of course, with generative AI, with VMod, I think they stopped doing their fabric digitization service where you can send them your materials, but I think they still have their AI tool, as far as I know. So I
Got it.
think you can, anyone that's listening
So
could
people
head
should
over.
try it.
Yeah, try it out. I think it's something like vmod, like vmod.xyz or something like
XYZ.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and try that out. And that's interesting, because then you're using, language as an input. But where we're seeing, for example, other companies, we don't necessarily, have all the details about how this is being used, but we're also seeing AI being used with image input. So, for example, some companies like SETI, like Frontier, as we know, also uses flatbed scanners. Other companies out there as well that kind of, claims to use AI in their fabric digitization process. What they're usually doing, and what is almost like the fundamentals, is, at least in my understanding of that process, is you capture a base image. So let's say you have a flatbed scanner, you put your material into the flatbed scanner and you scan that one reference image, you get very high DPI, very high quality of that base reference image, but then you're missing the actual PBR texture maps that will, simulate its reflectiveness and how it responds to material and lights, and how it's the depth of the material and so forth. So in order to generate those maps, it will then take that reference image and then reference it against a data set of other
Yes.
materials that have the full texture maps with them, and then synthetically generate, or we kind of tend to say synthetically generate, then generating the missing PBR texture maps. And that's then using that main base image. The thing there is we often run into these kind of AI hallucinations, which we know both from text kind of based and from image based or prompt AI, which for a lot of people that's digitizing materials can be troublesome, because you end up with a material that isn't really the actual material that you're digitizing. It's a material that on the screen looks completely different from the physical material that you've digitized. And that can sometimes be a problem when, in particular, we're talking about being able to trust what you see on the screen, to be able to make decisions as if what you see on the screen is the same as what you would see physically. So I think that's an interesting space.
I think the hallucinations are really interesting,
Mm,
because it's not new if we think about it when it comes to computers, because essentially
yeah.
I could go back to the early 2000s, creating a print on Photoshop, for example. Create a print on
Mm,
Photoshop. I quite, really excited. I've got 12 colors. It's a 50 by 50 cm. I'm absolutely thrilled. I send it to the
mm,
factory. They go, well, our screen size is 128 cm. We can only print 4 colors. We can't do this. They then have to go, let me change it into what we can actually do. So
mm,
basically being able to make images on computers that cannot be recreated in textiles in real life, our
yeah.
industry is very used to, I would say.
Mm,
So part of that, part of the argument against using AI as being like, well, it's just going to make me something that I can't then weave, knit, print, embroider, whatever. I
yeah.
think we
Yeah.
can come back, push back a little bit on that and say, well, this all has to be done with education, and this all
Mm,
has to be done with a wider scope of knowledge than just, going ahead and saying, weave me up this material on the computer, which then can't exist.
yeah.
And I used an example when we were talking earlier about creating woven materials. I remember creating woven materials on a software program in the late 90s. I was very
Mm,
excited. I made way too many shafts. My weave plan made absolutely no sense at all. And in theory, I tried to weave it, and the technical tutor looked at it and was like, your cloth will literally just fall apart. There's no way for it to happen. You're just going to get threads hanging everywhere. It
mm,
won't work. But the program didn't tell me that. The CAD software didn't tell me that. So
mm,
is it possible that within some of the AI tools, they'll be able to provide suggestions as to how you could improve if you wanted to make that a real thing?
mm, mm,
That to me is going to be very beneficial to
mm.
going forward. So yeah, I'm
Yeah, no, I
interested to
think
see.
that's I'm currently watching this whole, like, I've signed up, I've switched out switched out my Netflix subscription for a masterclass subscription, and they just launched this kind of AI. This is not an advertisement for masterclass, by the way, but I'm watching like an AI masterclass. It's quite fundamental but interesting, and they're very much on this whole kind of concept of thinking of the AI as like a co-pilot. this whole like AI first type of thing. But we're seeing more and more of this, and I think that's really what we see is as the role of it, of being like a co-pilot, of someone who, at least in my case, I often think that, like a lot of the stuff that I talk to ChatGPT about, I don't know any other people around me that would have the patience to like nerd out on all the stuff that I'm like talking to ChatGPT with. So I'm thinking of it as like a co-pilot that can go so deep without being frustrated. That is really incredible, and I'm very happy to be able to have that almost like that nerding out kind of partner. So I feel like we can see that with fabric digitization as well. That is a co-pilot, can help you with practical elements. Maybe also, to briefly mention with physics data,
Yeah.
other than visuals, we of course have physics. Physics is typically data that is captured, for example, like a lot of the physics material right now is captured in a testing lab in a fabric mill, not necessarily for 3D, but like a lot of the actual physics that's used for testing data of the material itself. And now we're also, of course, talking about adding fabric physics that can be used for simulation and 3D design tools. Those are then within a little bit more specific parameters and are maybe based on a little bit more kind of hard references, in that if it's a certain weight and if it's a certain composition or construction or whatever it is, it might then correspond to a certain physics in the material that is easier to extrapolate or approximate using AI. So I think it has a lot of potential, for the actual physics calculation without going too technical. What do you think about that part?
I agree with you, because it's set data that doesn't change essentially within the weights, the composition, the construction, bending. That data doesn't change because essentially it's the fabric reacting to gravity. So unless we're on the moon, it's not changing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's going to be. I know that people are working on that. I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of what that is once those are published. But I also think, if we think that we've got the visuals of a digital material, we've got the physics of a digital material, and then we've got the data around, the impact data around the digital material, which is a twin of that physical material. If an AI tool can support us to be able to make more environmentally beneficial decisions around that material selection, that is a very good thing. It's a really good thing if it can just say, FYI, this will give you X output and this will give you X output depending on your choice of material. So I think we can see positives in a lot of different areas. I think I also have to mention the fact that there's still quite a lot of confusion around the difference between AI and AR. I do quite a lot of work in
Yeah.
augmented reality, and people keep on asking me about why I'm working with AI, because it's taking away their jobs. I keep on saying it's augmented reality, not artificial intelligence at the moment. So we're really far away, I think, from it taking over a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a really interesting space to watch. And I'm sure within the next 12 months, we will have some tools that we can be playing with in a positive way to support us within digital product creation. I guarantee it. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. No, I think it is almost like this whole like idea of this co-pilot that can really help us to make better decisions. We're gonna have to drive it ourselves, but like it's someone that can then almost like sit next to us and work together with us. And even, like you mentioned, that if you might have a material and you're looking for a replacement for that material, and based off of all the metadata of all the materials you might be having, you could then, much more easily find substitutes that are more environmentally friendly, or more socially friendly, or more certified in this and that way, and like all of these different things. I think that's where it's going to be really really useful. But many different, I think it's probably not in almost like just to mention about in the next 12 months. I think we're going to see a lot of exploration around how AI can help us. We're going to see a lot of things that I think will be working and will be actually helping us. And then we're going to be probably understanding a little bit more almost like kind of how we categorize the way that AI is helping us across these different things that we need to do in our jobs. It's not just going to come in and take all of our jobs. It's going to kind of support us in the different roles that we then have. And it's going to be a lot of tools, I think, in that space. And we're probably going to be talking more about this in the coming episodes. But it is important, I think, to just understand and almost like take the time to learn and almost think of, at least I'm getting this from this like masterclass, this thing that I'm watching, that it's a little bit like like a superpower, like it's giving you superpowers. So yeah, at least it can. It seems to be able to. Should be able
I'm
to.
definitely interested to hear people's comments on this, because we know it's quite a controversial topic for some people, but
Yeah.
within production, it's also can be a little bit controversial, thinking about efficiencies and optimizations. And actually, in a number of different ways, it can be controversial in the sense that, well, we don't need it to help us make more product. We don't need more products out there. So that's not necessarily a good thing. And also around, obviously, labour forces and working and seamstresses. So there's a real scope of ethical choices to be, ethical discussions to be had in this space as well, let alone data and sign off and all of those things. So we're aware of that. We're aware of those topics and those associated areas within AI as well. And I think it's important that we recognise those in this discussion as well.
Yeah. No, I think very important. And maybe on that note, since we're trying to keep our episodes a little bit shorter in this season, if you want to know more about this, I don't know exactly, I don't have the full overview of everything that will be discussed in detail, but right now there's also 3D Tech Fest happening today and tomorrow and on Thursday. Both Gabby and I will be having in 2 individual sessions. Tomorrow, I'll be having or be participating in a panel discussion on digital materials, so feel free to join that. I think we're going to be talking a little bit AI, and tomorrow you're also going to be talking about something I'm excited about, Gabby.
Yes, it's Learn CLO in 29 days. It's actually a course I ran with my colleague James, where we taught 15 students CLO 3D in 29 days. And it's what the students and the educators learnt. So I will leave you with that.
Very exciting. Okay, tune into 3D Tech Fest, and we'll see you again next week.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye. Thank you for listening to The Seamless Blend. If you enjoyed today's discussion, feel free to subscribe. We also invite you to connect with us and participate in our discussions on Discord. Let us know if you agree, disagree, or have any questions. Until next time, take care.